Mom told me
What?
my son was born ready. She said it like that, too. It's weird. She's French, but she had a southern accent. My son was born ready. I don't know why she talked like that. It's odd.
You're a strange man.
I am. All right, are you ready to do this?
I
Strange
was
show.
born ready.
Here we go.
Hey Dad, can you lend me $1, please?
Yeah, sure. Why?
Because I want to donate to Daily Tech News Show.
What? How are you going to do that?
I'm going to head over to patreon.com/acedetect, and if you like the show, then you can donate too.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, November 18th, 2014. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Patrick Beja, DTNS correspondent, and host of Rendezvous Tech, and Pixels podcast, which I'm just going to give up on the bad French accent for now.
No, but I love how you pronounce the French names of my shows. It's always a delight, Tom. It's delightful. That's what it
I'm
is.
sure that's the word you're thinking. Hey, Patrick, we got a new Nokia tablet to talk about. I'm kind of intrigued.
Yeah, I am as well, and there's a lot of things to say about it. It's going to be an interesting one.
All right, let's get into
Maybe
that.
a little bit trollish, but we'll see.
Uh-oh. Get your troll hats on, Nokia fanboys. But first, the headlines. Facebook launched a new standalone app today. This is from the Facebook Creative Labs team called, not the team, but the app is called Groups. GigaOM reports the app, as you might expect, helps users manage their groups on Facebook. Users can create a group, keep up with the latest posts in their existing groups, search for new groups based on interests. Unlike Facebook's standalone Messenger app, no one is going to force you to download this one, though. It's just supposed to make it easier, and you can still access your groups through the original Facebook app for now.
I kind of almost hoped they would take it out of the regular Facebook, feed and take it out of the app. They didn't, but I think it might be useful because Facebook is definitely overloaded now. So I don't know. Maybe it would be interesting to explore.
I don't love the layout of Swarm, but I do like the way Foursquare still lets you check in on Swarm and then go back to the Foursquare app very seamlessly. So if they did something like that, just to kind of offload groups out of the Facebook app, I'd be okay with that. I don't use Facebook groups. I'm totally the wrong person to ask on this, but I imagine if you've got a lot of groups that you maintain very actively, this could be quite helpful.
Probably. Nokia announced a new tablet called the Nokia N1. The 7.9-inch tablet uses Nokia's Z Launcher app and runs Android Lollipop and uses an Intel Atom Z3580 processor and uses the new reversible Type-C USB connector, but only at USB 2 speeds. What? Well, yeah. USB 2 speeds. Strange. Nokia designed the tablet, which will be made and sold by Foxconn. It will come to China first around February 19th on the Chinese New Year, and then to Europe later, and be priced at the equivalent of $249.
That'll be our main topic. We'll save the commentary. Here's what a lot of people are talking about today. Ars Technica writing up the controversy over Uber Senior VP of Business Emil Michael saying that Uber should hire researchers to look into the personal lives of journalists and give the media a taste of its own medicine. Michael specifically criticized Sarah Lacey of Pando Daily of accusing Uber of sexism and misogyny, and then intimated there was a specific claim Uber could prove about her life. When did he make these remarks? Well, it was a dinner for Uber execs and journalists in Manhattan on Friday. Uber thought the meeting was off the record. A BuzzFeed editor at the meeting was not informed that it was off the record. And the default position, if you don't know, is that everything is on the record. Michael stated his remarks were wrong, and he regrets them, although he thought they were off the record. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick posted a lot to Twitter today trying to explain, among other things, that Michael's remarks were terrible and do not represent the company, but he doesn't feel he should fire Michael.
Yeah, a lot to say about all of this. So first of all, he thought it was off the record. He apologized. It's probably what you should be doing. Whether or not Kalanick should fire him is maybe debatable. But all that aside, Are you freaking kidding me? Seriously, Uber? I mean, and you know, there's a lot in there about how Uber is being treated unfairly in the media and how they're being the victim. And again, this is in the off-the-record conversation, and he was probably blowing off steam a little bit. But Uber has started out the year, and the past year actually, with an enormous amount of goodwill and sympathy capital. I mean, they were the saviors of public transportation. Like, they were saving everyone from terrible experiences with taxis mostly, and everyone loved them. Everyone was in love with Uber a year and a half ago, and they have steadily been eroding that capital with terrible missteps of communication and behavior over the past 18 months or so, and claiming that the media is piling on them and it's the media's fault is, I think, even if it was done to blow off steam, symptomatic of probably a little bit of a misunderstanding of the situation at Uber. That being said, I went and checked Sarah Lacey's Twitter account. She does seem like she's really, 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 really angry with Uber. Like, the past 24 hours have been nothing but retweets of calls for the firing of Emil Michael, which I think she might be going, but whatever. That's besides the point. The really important thing is Uber has a problem with its communication and its image, and it seems to me that they might have a problem with the way they see their company and how they are presenting themselves. So even me, who is in love with Uber and love the service, I'm starting to think, dudes, maybe you should do something about all of this, like now.
Well, and here's what happens with this, right? You just got a peek into what that particular executive is like when his guard is down. This statement is unfathomable as a public statement, right? And that's the way people are reading it. We're all reading it in the context of a public statement, which makes it much worse. I'm not excusing it at all. There is a different context around it being said around a table where it's not meant, where the guy thinks this is off the record, this is not getting out of this room. And it becomes just a story that's passed along from person to person. Like, can you believe he said this? He may even intend it that way as sort of a, like, let's put a scare into them, because he wasn't saying he would do it. He said, what if we could do this? Maybe we should do this, right? That's the kind of person he is. You just got a peek at the unvarnished kind of person that he is. And that's not what companies usually like to do. They like to control the message very carefully. Sarah Lacey's very controversial. She's very provocative. She's very divisive among a lot of people, and she does tend to do a lot of investigative journalism. Sometimes people say it's not into important matters. Sometimes they do. But that's no excuse for someone going after her like that. Again, if you're in a private conversation with friends around a fire, you say different things than you would out on a public lectern, but those things you say are representative of who you are.
And I would go even farther, honestly, even if he was just blowing off steam again, and which I can completely understand, and he definitely did not mean what he said. If that's the case, I would understand it as well. But the thing is, the company is not being judged on his words alone. It's a series of things that have happened in the past few months, which make this the cherry on top.
This doesn't come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it did, then it would be one incident that we could discuss like that. Here, it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it seems to fit a pattern or an attitude, even if it's not as bad as it sounds. It certainly fits a pattern, like you're saying.
All right, moving on. The Verge reports Apple released Watchkit today, giving developers the tools they need to begin coding and testing apps for the Apple Watch. Watch apps can have their own interface and a page to the glances screen and send notifications. All apps must be extensions of existing iOS apps. Tools for native apps won't come until later next year. Still no word on when the watches themselves will be launched.
Yeah, there was also a couple of different resolutions, apparently. The sizes of the watches are very close. I think it's 1.5 inches and 1.65 inches. But they still have to have a different resolution for those, which people didn't necessarily know was going to be the case. Getting closer. PC World reports Intel will merge its PC and mobile processor divisions as the line between tablets and laptops continues to blur. The new division will be called the Client Computing Group, encompassing Core and Atom processor teams. The Mobile and Communications Group is going to split apart. It will send its Atom processor team to the new group, and its modem teams are going to move to a new wireless R&D group. Kirk Scoggin, who leads the PC client group, will lead the new combined mobile and client computing group, which takes effect sometime after January 1st.
Makes sense. The BBC reports that scientists at Google have created machine learning software that can accurately describe what a photograph looks like using simple language. The software uses neural network trained to recognize images, then runs that data through neural network designed to generate simple language, and voila! Captions. The software could be used to help visually impaired people understand pictures, provide alternate text for images in places where mobile connections are too slow for images, and put every caption writer on earth out of business. And there's another one actually, could help Google index and make images searchable a little bit more easily.
Well, you can already do some pretty fancy image searching based on terms and keywords. This would just make that supercharged, right?
Yeah, for those who haven't seen those examples, it's real spoken language, or written language. It's not just a series of words. For one example would be an image of two pizzas on a stove. It actually says two pizzas sitting on top of a stove top oven. Another one would be a group of young people playing a game of frisbee. They were honest. They showed in their article cases where it didn't work at all. There was a whole range there. But the cases where it works are super impressive.
Yeah. I wonder if this is outgrowth of that story we heard a couple of years ago about researchers teaching a program to recognize cats on its own. Do you remember that? I bet it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a move that sounds dangerously like what HTC was saying a few years ago, Samsung's head of investor relations, Robert Yee, told investors Samsung plans to make fewer phones next year, according to the Wall Street Journal. GigaOM said the company plans to cut its list of current devices by at least a quarter. I don't know. I mean, do they have that many? I guess heads up, Galaxy Active, Galaxy Star, Galaxy Pocket 2, Galaxy A Style LTE, Galaxy J,
do all of them?
Galaxy Core Lite LTE, Galaxy Core Advance. Maybe
Reuters reports on IBM's new email app for business that combines social media, file sharing, and other analytics to predict interactions with coworkers. The app, called IBM Verse, does not want to rat you out to your boss, but rather act as a personal assistant and do things like draft response emails based on previous interactions. That sounds really cool and really dangerous for,
well, don't just hit send. Read that draft. There are plenty of times where this would come in very handy. Like, for instance, when I send my day before reminder email to people for DTNS, it generally says the same thing with a few variables. If it could do a good job of drafting that, that'd be super helpful.
Isn't it also weird that IBM is getting into the app business? This is done a lot of apps.
Yeah, this is enterprise level apps, which is pretty much what they do. I mean, they provide solutions. This is a solution, Patrick.
But have they done an app before?
Calling it an app makes it sound more different somehow. You're
right. It's not a mobile app. It's an application.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Okay. Time for some news from you. These come from folks. Oh, sorry.
No, not wait. I read that one already.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, do you want to talk about it again?
I could read it again.
Time for some news from you. These come from our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Thanks to everybody who submits stories in there. Obviously, our big stories every day are always submitted in there. That helps us determine that they should be up near the top of the headline. So keep voting on those. We always like to highlight a few stories that are unique, though. metalfreak sent along the PC World article that a certificate authority called Let's Encrypt will start providing website owners with free SSL TLS certificates starting sometime in Q2 next year. The CA will be run by a new public benefit corporation in California called Internet Security Research Group. It was set up by Mozilla, the EFF, and a few others in an attempt to get as many people as possible using TLS. Let's Encrypt will automate certification issuance, configuration, and the renewal processes, so you don't have to do anything. Just apply it. Another primary sponsor, existing CA Ident Trust, will cross-sign the certificates, which will help them be valid right out of the gate.
That all sounds great. Go do that, people. Peter File pointed out the Verge article about WhatsApp's Android app adding strong end-to-end encryption by default. WhatsApp partnered with Open Whisper Systems, developer of Text Secure, among other apps. Open Whisper CTO Moxie Marlinspike, which sounds like a role-playing game name, says it took 6 months to get the code ready for the huge deployment.
Yeah, Moxie Marlinspike is one of the smartest security researchers out there, and one of the best names. You're absolutely right. This does forward secrecy. It's awesome. Like, good job,
Yeah.
Facebook company WhatsApp partnering with the right people to do the right thing. Encrypt all the things. metalfreak passed along an Ars Technica report that Honorable Ernest H. Goldsmith of San Francisco Superior Court has ruled that Google search results qualify as free speech. S. Lewis Martin of a website called Coast News had sued Google for violating antitrust laws because it put the Coast News site lower in search results than Bing or Yahoo. The site also sued over Google's refusal to deliver ads to Coast News after the site posted photographs of a nudist colony, which I assume violates Google's terms of service. However, the court decided that Google's protected by the First Amendment and therefore has the right to organize its search results as it sees fit. Case closed. Search results are free speech in the U.S.
It is a really interesting decision, and it also could have a lot of consequences on how Google manages its business and its search results. I mean, it seems like a pretty obvious, of course it is, case here, but when you look at how much power Google exerts on websites in general, it does pose a question of exactly how much freedom should Google have in the way they manage their search results. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't have come to that decision, of course, but it's just, it carries so much weight and meaning that it does give me pause, and I have to think about it a little bit more.
It's the predominance of Google in the marketplace that sounds like bothers you more so than the idea that, I mean, search results being free speech, I'm 100% behind. But I can see what you're saying is, if there's only one speaker, for all intents and purposes, that can cause another problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that, my friends, is the headlines. All right, let's talk a little bit about Nokia N1. They introduced it at the Slush Festival in Helsinki. I meant to ask you this before the show. Do you know what the Slush Festival is? I don't.
I do. And it might be only because my wife is Finnish, but I do. And it's funny, you know, Finland is not a huge country, and they're super happy about any time that they get noticed outside of Scandinavia, and apparently they were super happy that the Slush Festival got a little bit of limelight because of this. And I mean, it's a pretty cool conference. It's just started recently. So yeah, go Finland, go Slush.
It's not just a bunch of people walking around in half-melted snow. It's an actual... Okay.
Well, I've never been there, so I can't, completely confirm or deny. But my understanding is that it isn't.
Okay, good. So this is interesting. Designed by Nokia. Everything else by Foxconn. Now, you might want to say, oh, well, that's like Apple, right? They design the iPhone and then Foxconn makes it. But this is different, actually. Foxconn is not just doing the manufacturing and then handing it back to Apple for everything else. Foxconn is handling distribution, sales, customer care, liability and warranty costs. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a Foxconn product that they're licensing the Nokia design and name from. But very wisely, they're letting Nokia be the leader because Nokia's got the brand name recognition.
And it's also interesting that Foxconn is getting into that game because we've heard for, I guess, a couple of years now that they've been manufacturing devices for so many other companies that they were thinking about probably thinking about doing it themselves as well at some point. So that might be a halfway point to actually having a Foxconn branded product on the market. But back to Nokia. That's not exactly the announcement anyone was expecting or hoping for.
No, Microsoft can't be happy about this.
Yeah.
Microsoft still makes the Nokia Lumia 2520 Windows tablet, which is called the Nokia Lumia 2520 Windows tablet, by the way.
Well, they're transitioning it off to, Lumia 26 something. So they're getting away from the name Nokia. And maybe they did this a little bit early because Nokia called them and said, hey, we might be getting back in the device game a little bit sooner than people might think, which I don't think anyone was expecting Nokia to get the device out this soon, this early.
Well, because Microsoft took the manufacturing. Microsoft said you can't put a smartphone out till 2016, and you can't put a feature phone out for 10 years. I think everybody thought, well, they're going to make all their money off of networking gear. They'll probably stick with that, right?
That's, I think, what a lot of people expected, and then they would come back into the phone market in time with maybe something a little bit more original, because the other thing that we didn't really touch on yet is how, do I want to be mean? I guess I might be barred from going back to Finland ever again. But
you have to sneak in with your wife.
There's an inordinate amount of pride in Nokia in Finland. That's something that is difficult to understand how much it is. At some point, Nokia employed 2% of the population of Finland. It's 5 million people total. So yeah, it's a really important company for them. And this device doesn't seem like the kind of thing we would hope Nokia would do when coming back into the market. It's basically an iPad mini, but with Android on it.
It looks very much like an iPad mini. You're absolutely right. It's 6.9 millimeters, so it's thinner than the 7.5 millimeters of the iPad mini 3. 318 grams, so it's less weight than the 341 grams of the iPad mini 3, and it has a different home button. From what I can tell, those are the main distinctions between the two.
Yeah. So there are a few faults as well. I mean, the USB 2.0, what? Again,
that's because,
as I was saying earlier.
Yeah, that's because the chipset. They couldn't get a chipset that would support USB 3 yet, but they wanted to have that reversible design.
Yeah,
so they're basically just using the design.
Reason. My wife was looking at it and saying it seems like something a Finnish engineer would do. Which is look at the best thing there is on the market, and arguably, of course, not everyone will agree, but arguably, hardware-wise, it's the iPad line, and the iPad Mini is certainly a very successful product. So they would look at it and think, what is wrong with this thing, and what can we improve? And so they looked at this and decided we can do a better product than the product that is acclaimed by the public. The thing that is a little bit bothersome, I think, is that they didn't think they improved something that existed. They didn't think, what do people want that doesn't exist yet, or that doesn't have that form yet. But on the other hand, okay, let's be a little bit positive. On the bad side, it's an iPad Mini with Android Lollipop on it. But on the good side, it's an iPad Mini with Android Lollipop on it.
And
right?
Some people don't like the Z launcher, but I haven't tried it yet. You can get it as an app for your Android phones. It looks intriguing because it adapts as you use it and tries to put the apps you use most often at the front, so they're easier to find. And then it has that little thing where you can just write the first letter of an app, and then it'll show you all the apps that begin with that letter, again, in order by which you use them. I've always wanted that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, organizing your apps is probably something that's a little bit lacking on Apple and even Android side in general. And if you don't like the launcher, you can get rid of it. And
it's otherwise pretty much stock. You're right.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's a cool Android tablet, and I'm sure that everyone could consider getting it, although it's not going to be available for us yet. But it's not as exciting as I think a lot of people would have hoped. A new Nokia device would have been, given the history. Do you think, Tom, they sort of burned a little bit of their "we're coming back" capital with this?
I don't know. Maybe they did. At the same time, I wonder if the longer they waited, the harder it would have been to impress. And so the surprise here, the shock is, wow, they're doing mobile devices already. Nobody expected that. President of Nokia Technologies, Ramzi Haidamus, said that the company is looking at going into the cell phone licensing business post Microsoft rights as soon as so it sounds like as soon as 2016. Like, I think what they're doing is saying, we don't want people to forget about us. We don't want people to think we stopped making things. And so we're going to do this. We're going to work with Foxconn, who has a big stake in this game. And that's why they're going to China first. They're keeping it very affordable. For $249, getting, something that is got Nokia design, even if it looks quite a bit like an iPad, is pretty compelling. It all depends on how well this does and what the follow-up is and what other things we start to see from them, I think.
I guess 8-inch tablets, there aren't a huge amount of really good 8-inch tablets on the market for Android. I guess there are.
There's some
good,
yeah. There's lots of Android tablets. I mean, that could be the one issue here, is that you've got a lot of competition out there. Again, maybe that's why you go into China, because you figure Foxconn has got an advantage there and can distribute right into the country, and then you can come to Europe afterwards with the Nokia brand name. I think it's actually a very bold move. I kind of think it might end up being smart. We'll see. But it's definitely showing Nokia is not just going to sit back and be a network infrastructure company. I mean, they're going to be that. They're going to continue to be that. But the folks who are not part of Microsoft Mobile really want to become Nokia again, is what this means to me.
Yeah, for sure. Lazy Dog in the chat room is saying that Lightning connectors are also USB 2.0. So I might have been Apple fanboyishly prejudging.
All it means is that
USB
it's the
2.0.
same USB speed as every other USB device you can get right now, except it's reversible. So if you look at it that way, it's just a nifty positive, not anything bad. It will be a negative once the USB 3 devices start coming next year, and then if you've got the N1, you're like, oh, this one's still USB 2. Our calendar shows tomorrow is the first day that your Amazon Fire TV stick might ship, depending on how fast you ordered it. That was the earliest date, although a lot of them slipped right after that. Mine's not coming until December 11th. And tomorrow is also the start of the O'Reilly's Strata Conference in Barcelona, Spain, about managing big data and eating jamón ibérico. Probably more about
I always
the big
wondered
data.
about both of those.
Yes. I would like to eat some jamón right now. Our pick of the day comes from Matt, who says, my pick is myfave.es. It's myfav.es. I use it for my browser start screen on our Windows 7 home theater PC with Logitech K400 to make life easier for my wife. She's been happy with it, so I've never ventured to anything like Plex or XBMC. And it's just a page customizer. You say, I want these sites with their nifty icons to be laid out app style on a page, and then it's easy to see what stuff you're choosing from. I could see it totally working for a home theater PC. Now, I saw some mixed reviews on MyFave, so Matt says it works great for him. You might want to look at others. There's start.me has been around for a long time. I've heard people using that. And I put the alternative2.net link to all the other ones that exist as well. So thank you, Matt. Pretty good tip for folks, especially if you've got a laptop hooked up to your TV or something like that. You can make it easier to get to your sites visually from that 10-foot interface. Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. All right, we've got a couple of emails and then a voicemail. I'm going to flip the order here. Because I know there's at least one person who's like, I'm getting tired of the net neutrality, so I'm going to put the net neutrality after. That way, if you just want to stop listening, you can. Jeremy wrote in and said, as someone who occasionally drives for Uber and even less for Lyft in Nashville after my regular job, I was intrigued about Uber and Spotify. My thoughts are that it really isn't that big of a deal, especially for the times in which I drive. I primarily drive after my regular job for a couple of hours. Half those rides end up being for business folks going to the airport. The other half college students or couples headed out for the night. The one thing they almost all have in common is they have their heads down, doing something with their phone, Be it a business call on the way to the airport, checking Facebook, browsing the internet. Hardly anyone ever comments on the music selection on the radio, so I don't think this will even be used by many of my passengers. As I mentioned, I drive usually in the early evening, but I do drive on weekend nights sometimes. Most of the rides are for 2 to 3 passengers at a time, and usually they're busy chatting to themselves. Once again, not caring much about the music selection. On the other hand, we had Sakani on our DTNS blog post, "As an Uber driver in Southern California, your discussion today was spot on. I would have welcomed the Spotify idea once. I do have an auxiliary cable in my car that I let riders use if they want to listen to their own stuff. Why anyone would not like the overclocked remix that I play, I have no idea. That was until the one time I had to listen to Skrillex blaring for 20 miles. Never again." So there you go. The difference is Nashville versus Southern California, Patrick.
That is the only difference we will ever hear about Uber's Spotify thing. I mean, do you not like Skrillex? He's cool, you know.
Well, no, I got no problem with Skrillex. It was Sakani who apparently
no, I know.
did not like the level, the volume of Skrillex that was being
right.
played.
So the Spotify thing is cool because it lets the driver control the level. So.
Right. Well, the driver, I would assume Sakani could have turned the volume down on the Skrillex too, but maybe that just...
What are you hiding, Sakani?
No, I think it really is going to be a driver preference thing, right? Some drivers are just going to be like, nope, not going to do it. And others are going to be like our first one here, Jeremy. It's like, what's the big deal? Most of my drivers are fine. It kind of depends on where you are and who you are.
Maybe you can turn it off and on at a whim. So, if you're doing it during the day and it's business people, you can turn it on, and then, it's Saturday evening and you're like, not today.
You just unplug the wire. Oh, it's broken. Sorry, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. All right, here's our net neutrality feedback. We got lots of great emails. I would like to read all of them if I could. We just don't have time. So thanks, everybody, for sharing your thoughts with us. Big Jim called in with this thought right here.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Jenny. Bonjour, Monsieur Beja. It's Big Jim, just outside of Hangar 18 in cold, snowy Dayton, Ohio. I just wanted to call in and talk about net neutrality. Tom, on yesterday's show, you and Justin were discussing net neutrality with a caller who wanted to discuss, movies being pay-per-view movies and affecting their bandwidth and their download caps. And you said, it's kind of a gray area. But that stemmed off of a conversation that you and Molly had on Friday, so I guess we're going meta on top of meta here. My question is, do we have a violation of net neutrality when it comes to T-Mobile? Now, saying that, let me just preface this by saying I am a huge fan of T-Mobile. I love what they're doing. I think they are making some great steps. My wife is a subscriber. I am a big fan of what John Legere is doing. That being said, is it a violation of net neutrality that they are offering free streaming services of audio music? So your Spotify, your Pandora, I think it's Rdio, Google Play, iTunes, and Amazon and Stitcher, but don't quote me on that. I don't know which ones are and which ones are not in. Is that a violation of net neutrality? Because it doesn't count towards your bandwidth. It doesn't count towards your data cap. So is that a violation? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just the cold medication I'm on. Sometimes it produces crazy effects. By the way, why do both of you look like purple elephants right now?
Patients may experience visions of net neutrality.
That's all I got. Have a great week. Go get some peanuts, and we will talk to you next time.
Because we're elephants. Thanks, Big Jim. That is a much more interesting example to me than the cable companies providing on-demand video, because you can argue that's a different infrastructure, whether it really is or not. This is not. This is T-Mobile saying, we'll exempt you from your data cap for these services. Now, in T-Mobile's defense, they're saying, really, it's any music service. We just need to partner up with them. But the counter-argument is, if I'm a new music service, I'm at a disadvantage until I strike this deal with T-Mobile. They're picking winners and losers in the marketplace. That's not net neutrality. It's a practice that's called zero rating. And the other thing to consider, before I hear what Patrick thinks of this, is that this is very widespread in Africa and other parts of the world, because it's a way for people to get introduced to free services. You get a very affordable smartphone, and your Facebook, your BBC, Basically, this is what Internet.org is doing with their app, is they're zero rating certain apps, so you have access to vital information, news, weather, etc., but the suppliers of that information are being preferred, and that's not really net neutral. So this is a really good example of maybe sometimes net neutrality being violated can be a good thing, maybe it can be a bad thing. Should it be allowed? Patrick, what do you think?
That's a super, super slippery slope and a very treacherous intellectual debate, saying, well, in Africa, it could be a good thing, and that's not really net neutral, so I don't know, maybe. No, it's completely anti-net neutrality, and it's really not acceptable. I think in the context of the U.S. market, the fact that it's the textbook definition of not net neutral. You favor some services over some others because you have stricken deals with them, which very likely involve the exchange of money. And yes, it is a big problem, because if they don't count against your data caps and others do count against your data caps, you're more likely to use the ones that don't, and the other ones are going to be at the disfavorable rate. No, I think it's very clear. There's no question. It's anti-net neutrality, and it's borderline unacceptable. And to be honest, the problem here is not so much the fact that they're partnering with some services to not count against your data caps. The problem is that you have data caps to begin with. And the reason why you have data caps is, again, what everyone keeps hammering on about, the lack of competition.
Yeah.
So it always comes back to that.
Although, interestingly, the competition that we do have in the U.S. is better on the wireless side, and that's why you see T-Mobile doing mostly pro-consumer things, right? And in T-Mobile's defense, they have said, we'll put any music service on here. It's not an exchange of money. We're just doing this so you can listen to your music, right? They're trying to make it a pro-consumer thing, but they are violating the strict, net neutrality rule to do it. And they get to do that. It's legal under the current wireless is exempt from even the previous open internet guidelines anyway.
I guess I'm being a little bit disingenuous because we have data caps in France as well. And in this case, I don't know. I guess maybe it's debatable, but I don't like it, damn it.
And Big Jim was saying in the chat room, he's like, my point is we all scream net neutrality except when it's something we like. But Patrick's still screaming net neutrality even though he may like the service. So there you go.
No, because it's not something you like. You're looking at it by we can get these things for not counting against our data caps, but the way to look at it is everything else is counting against the data cap. And yes, it's wireless, so it might be a little bit of a different story, but
yeah. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you, Patrick Beja. Go to FrenchSpin.com, folks, because that's where Patrick's English language shows are being collected. Or is it, if you want the French language ones, is it FrenchSpin.fr?
Try to guess. Yes, exactly. Yeah. FrenchSpin.fr for the French ones, FrenchSpin.com for the English ones, and not Patrick on Twitter for everything else.
Thank you.
Or I guess everything, period.
Patrick Beja. 4,601 patrons are part of the reason that you're here. So thanks to them as well.
Thanks. Yes. Seriously. Thank you.
Thank you for supporting the show in any way, whether it's on Patreon, patreon.com/acedetect, or via PayPal, or just buying a shirt or buying one of my books. Anything you do to say, hey, you know what, I got a little value out of this show. I think this is an appropriate way to give a little value back. I appreciate it tremendously. And it's not required. But if you're interested, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/donate. Don't forget you can have a voice in what stories we cover at our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can call us 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. The show's live 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 Pacific on alphageekradio.com. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Ayaz Akhtar.
About this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio programs so good, it's like you're there.
Woohoo!
Ken from Chicago, yes, we do have data berets, not data
saw
caps.
Obviously. I think that should go without saying.
I thought, yeah, everyone would understand that already. So.
Right. They also just call them fries and toast and ticklers.
Whoa.
Sorry.
We have
And
good
spin.
titles. Yeah.
And not French spin. In France, it's just
Yeah,
spin.
I got that one. Thank you, Tom.
Yes, what are our titles?
Would you like to talk about something else? Okay, so the number one title so far is Uber Regretful.
Okay, you're gonna have to really knock me out to dislodge that
the
one.
next one actually is maybe my favorite, but you have to say it a certain way, which is, I am groups.
I saw that one. That was TVZ Gun, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're both good with the
Yeah,
sound.
because I responded to the chat room. We are groups
Yeah.
because we're groups.
Let's see. Dinner for Snarks. Thrown under the Uber. Uber Creepy.
Thrown out of the Uber is interesting. Uber creepy. Yeah. Okay.
What's the reference in Uber regretful? I didn't get it.
Just the German Uber being used as very,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
because they're regret. Because he said, "I regret."
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
No,
not
I
a
thought there was
movie
a reference
reference.
there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at these. I think that's the best one. Uber regretful. Double meaning. Can't do better than double meaning.
Yeah, because
Unless
it's also
triple
just
meaning.
it's like a straight nose headline in a way. Uber regretful.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, it also works as a sentence, sort of.
Yeah.
Missing
Yeah.
its-
A headline
missing
sentence.
A
anyway.
headline sentence. So there's that.
Because potatoes are apples of the earth. I just love that. That's their name in French.
Well, they do feel a little bit like apples when you cut them open.
You know, they act. You know, it makes perfect sense because if you don't have a sense of smell, like you're stuffed up really and you can't smell anything, and you don't look, the texture of a potato, a raw potato, is the same as an apple.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
they
there's a
are
whole-
apples from the earth.
There's a whole line in one of my favorite books about that.
Oh, really?
A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, in which very poor Francie Nolan eats a potato and thinks to herself, it's almost as good as an apple. And little Jenny in her fireplace in Brooklyn cried. There you go. Potatoes are like
Wow.
apples.
I only know A Tree Grows in Brooklyn as the Looney Tunes joke,
Yeah.
where the
no,
dog gets
it's-
really excited. I think you're the first person I've ever met who actually not only read it but loved it.
Yeah, it's definitely an 11-year-old girl who lives in Brooklyn book
Uh huh.
to read.
Sure, that makes sense.
But yeah, that book is full of just heartbreaking. It's actually a great book.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now
also-
now that title actually has depth for me.
Yeah.
Also, it never sold very well at half price books. We wouldn't really pay for
It's
it.
not a Texas book. It's very specific. I mean, it's a classic. Like it's a
Yeah, we'd always
classic
shelve it
and-
in literature, but
right, but it's not something I could see the people of Texas deeply relating to the way they might other books.
now don't forget this is the UT Austin
True.
crowd, right? So we had lots of like things that you might not normally
Yeah.
think of as being very
Physics
Texas.
books. Yeah, but it's so specific and so about Brooklyn that I
Right.
could see, unless you came from there, not being flagged to it in the 80s or 90s. But I
Gotcha.
think that's what I'm trying to say. But everybody should read it because, oh boy, it is good writing. I'm
You
gonna
never
hire
say
Ken from
double
Chicago.
entendre. You just say entendre.
No.
I keep looking down and go, that's an interesting remark, and then realizing it's Patrick.
Oh, thank you. Can I use that in my bio or something?
Yeah, sure. I really did love hearing you on the instance. The Instance is one of my favorite shows. I'm going to embarrass Patrick now. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. When Randy left, I was frightened that I would not continue to enjoy it as much, and I totally did. Dills and Terpster filled in wonderfully. And when you announced at BlizzCon that you were coming on, I had no doubts. I was not frightened this time. I was like, oh, of course, he used to be part of the show in a much smaller way, and he worked at Blizzard, right? So this is going to be perfect. But listening to the show, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like taking a great show and just making it even better. Like, it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Well, you bring... Terpster usually brings the industry perspective, because he works in the industry with the Yogscast guys, but having that even more like, not that you were revealing inside information or anything, but just having that, well, I've been even closer to how this works really helps.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm doing better than Terpster is what you're saying.
That's not what I was saying. Stop twisting my words.
Well,
I think Terpster will always be the lore master, no? Isn't he the...
Well, maybe yes. But,
yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe, possibly. I do know a little bit about lore.
I mean, competition.
on the Current Geek that I did a few months ago, there was a WoW lore thing, and I got like all but one question.
All right. We'll have to have Terpster back on Current Geek and find out. What was your score, though? That's
well, I think we'd have to ask Gavel McGavel.
Gavel McLeod.
Your scoring system is so fundamentally unfair that my mind breaks every time I listen to
Wait, what? No, don't say that. Shh. She didn't say that. I wasn't part of it. I don't know what you're talking about. It's completely fair.
It's not a problem. I'm never going to be on Current Geek, so it's not like I have to worry about it.
Why not? You refuse?
No. I'm just saying it's not my intention to be on, so I can be independent and make an independent judgment that the way you score is so mean.
Listen, it's a very detailed and intricate scoring system. I understand that. Yeah, but it is based. There's an old world precedent in Big Fat Quiz of the Year. Is sort of the common law underpinnings for that scoring system. If you're familiar with that show out of the UK, then you'll understand a little more how the scoring works.
All right. All I want is if I get an answer right, I get the full score. I don't want other circumstances for that
question.
What is
right? What is truth? There's
what
a poetic
element.
What is fairness?
Really?
I will say no more. I have said my piece.
I'm going to go.
Bye, Patrick.
All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, chat room. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Tom. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sonia, too, because she helped bring some insights today.
That's true. I'll go thank her now.
All right. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Quantum scoring. I like that.
Where's quantum scoring? Yeah.
That's good.
Actually, your score may not stay the same after
That's true.
Or if you're not observing your score, is your score actually still there?
Yeah. Your score may both be the same and not the same at the same exact time.
Superposition scoring.
Yeah.
All right. I should probably upload this podcast, huh?
I like physics. I probably should have done the show notes. I didn't do the show notes, Tom. I listened to the show.
Oh,
radical.
Wow. You were that bored, huh?
No. It's quite the opposite. Sometimes I do the show notes ahead of the show. Sometimes I do not.
I know it made the show a little longer, but I'm glad we handled the Uber thing in headlines because
it was worth an extended discussion.
It was worth that, but I feel like if we'd made it the main discussion, it would be too much somehow. I don't know. I had a long text message conversation with Justin Robert Young about it last night. And at one point, I was like, look, I feel like our listeners are really excited about USB 3.1 because that could actually help their lives. They're sort of interested in the Intel Mica band because that's intriguing equipment. But a bunch of rich people talking to a bunch of insiders and talking trash about them, I'm not sure if that turns into a story. Now,
it's just media. It's a media story, really.
Exactly. And I'm not trying to say that it's unimportant or excusing anything, but it's a
Yeah. The way I look at it is I think it's a tech story in that it affects a technology company that is absolutely in the limelight right now and under scrutiny and deserves scrutiny on many different fronts because it's revolutionizing an industry.
yeah,
So in that sense,
no
yes.
disagreement there. I think you're absolutely
But
right.
like journalists being anytime I hear a journalist is mad, I as a former journalist, I think suck it up.
Yeah, I think there was an element of that. Like, this is just, you know, people who have too much access complaining when the rules got broken. Like, this is, I'm not, again, totally not excusing what the guy said, but there are things like this happening more often than we know in all the beats, not just tech.
Yeah, that's, you know, and my baseline for journalists getting upset is I was detained against my will in Iraq.
Yes. Right.
And I was held in a prison for 72 days. So, you know, or I was in a thing and it blew up and 2 people I knew died. So, like, if it's not that, I don't want to hear about it. I'm sorry.
On the other hand, though, I get why Sarah Lacey is upset, and she has a total right to be.
Yep, I agree. But it's a journalist's bias. It's a bias on. It's why I don't ever like to complain about anything if I can possibly help it.
It's and the thing is, once this becomes public, the whole conversation is different.
Oh yeah. On the other side, not to be too hard on my own people, I certainly think that if you even think you're going to go try to personalize information about somebody as a business tactic, you are in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah,
So.
I get the sort of like, well, maybe we ought to do this to you sort of attitude, but no, not cool at all. No excuses, not okay to say. And I think this actually shows a little sidelight on a different topic into the somewhat over-comfortable way in which reporters and business people will tend to get on any beat where they're just like, oh, well, you know this is off the record. I don't have to say anything, right? And then somebody's like, well, no, that's not really the way it's supposed to work. And so you didn't say it was off the record, so I'm going to report it. Mm-hmm. Now, whether they did that because they wanted to start some stuff with a company they hate or not, may be. But again, once it becomes public, then the conversation is about what you said, which is like, this is a company that is courting controversy and has engendered some questions about their trustworthiness and their attitudes. And this is further evidence of what their attitudes might be.
Yeah. In the end, Uber Boo Boo.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the other title.
With umlauts over the
Uber
O's.
Boo Boo. Uber Boo Boo.
Yeah, Omnimono says Uber story is drama. I kind of feel that way too.
Yeah. Drama with legitimate underpinnings.
Sure. Drama doesn't always mean that it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Just means that it's not maybe pertinent to the main, I don't know. It's not practical to my life, put it that way.
Yeah.
Except I guess it could be if I start to go, well, do I really want to support that company?
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely legitimate.
And that's where,
who was happy today? Lyft. Lyft
every Uber competitor.
Yeah.
All right. I am out of the post. I'm not regretful about our show. I think we had a good one.
Nope. Good show. Good show.
I'm going to talk to you folks tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.